Good evening. On tonight's episode, look into my eyes when I'm talking to you, said Jamie Redknapp to Gary Neville, or was that Thomas Tuchel to Antonio Conte? Also, Arsenal continue to go on their merry ways. What's happened at Manchester United? We take a deep and much more. This is the Talky Taka podcast. Right. So tonight on the panel we have long-suffering Manchester United supporter DSK. We have a smug-looking Liverpool supporter Radhaji, who's still not aware of what's going to happen in tonight's game. We also have a disgruntled Chelsea supporter in Ab, and I'm your host for the evening, Swagat. And I think there's only one place where we can start. This was at the Brentford Community Stadium, where the Bees stung Manchester United pretty badly in the first half. We're up 4-0 like in the first 30-35 minutes. Before we get into game, I just want to know what's happening, who's to blame. We're hearing lots of chatter on the social media and the media as well. Is it the ownership? Is it the management of the club? Is it the manager? Is it the players? What's going wrong? DSK, before I let you get started on this, Ashwin couldn't even be here because he's still so heartbroken that he just sent me a voice note. So here's what he had to say about the game.
All right. I've had 48 hours to think about this, so the number of F-bombs that I will throw will be much lesser than what it would have been had we been recording this right after the Brentford game. We went into the season with cautious optimism. We were told that the parasite of owners that we have are making changes that are progressive. We got rid of Ed Woodward, a banker known for brokering commercial deals, to Richard Arnold, a British accountant promoted from within the club, and John Murdoch, the so called director of football, was little to no experience in signing players. What we have seen in that game against Brentford is the club we have supported for so long decimated in front of our eyes. Gone are the days when we could expect the team to come back stronger after a loss. I went into this game and I went on record last week thinking that we would beat Brentford, a team that was still in the championship not long ago. The way we played was an absolute disgrace. Right from the start, we had a captain in Harry Maguire who was devoid of all confidence. You saw him making so many stray passes today that you feel he should play for the under 18s. And he wasn't even our worst player on the pitch. So it's just genuine hate that is coming through. He annoys me. You're the so called world's best shot stopper in David De Gea, letting in a tame effort go past him. I have defended him many a times, but the fact that he can't pass from the back, can't command the box, and is also losing his shot stopping ability makes me think if he's the right goalkeeper we should go with. We had a centre back today whose height and physicality have been exposed, even though we have been protecting him and calling him Fabio Cannavaro and whatnot. Welcome to the Premier League, Martinez. Relegated teams in the Premier League will eat Eredivisie for dinner. We have a left back who seems to be in the club only because he had one great season for the club and the national team, but is otherwise a calamity. Our forwards are devoid of ideas. Our greatest players and legends of the club want to leave us for personal glory. Don't even get me started on Cristiano. I've defended him so much as well. Doesn't want to play for the club. Get rid. We are relying on creativity from a man who was on the slide at Spurs, got shipped to Syria, where football is played in second gear, and is a medical risk, only for the manager to play him in a deep lying midfield role. Because he did not get the central defensive midfielder we had asked for the last 6 years. But this goes beyond the players. This goes to the absolute inefficiency the club operates in. As a rival fan, you may say, Swagat, oh, the Glazers have spent £1 billion in transfers. They've done so much for the club over the past 20 odd years. You won the Premier League, you won the Champions League, but Sir Alex Ferguson and David Gill were basically plastering the cracks on an establishment that was withering away. 10, 15 years ago, as Gary Neville pointed out on Sky, I know he got a bit emotional. So am I. All United fans are emotional right now. We have the best stadiums. We have the best training ground. Some of the best players in the world wanted to join us. It was always Real Madrid, Barcelona, or Man United. Today, you have an unproven manager at the helm who joined from an inferior league, obsessed with players he has worked with before, no clear vision from the board, ownership taking away millions of pounds away without investing any of their own money into the club. All they are doing is sitting on their in a luxury pad in Florida while asking their employees to do their bidding. Joe Glazer needs to take the next plane from the US and explain to the fans what his plans are and deliver on those plans. Something has to give. Something has to give. And I know we are not Paris Saint Germain, right? We don't have ultras. Like we don't want to resort to that. But these fans have suffered long enough. These are some of the most passionate fans in the world, and they just can't keep living this miserable life because of the failings and the greed of a family who are an absolute disgrace and scum of the highest order. Just can't take it anymore.
So powerful stuff there. DSK, you agree? Any? I mean, all yours. The stage is yours.
Yeah. So Ashwin there spoke his heart out. So let me take a step back and then try to look at what happened in the game. Uh, so the Brentford team and the manager especially had done their homework quite well. They looked at the template that Brighton did and replicated it quite well. And the template played out, and the game was over in the first 30-35 minutes. Now, who is to blame? I'd start with the players. Uh, I'll give Erik ten Hag some leeway here because he has come in new. He has come with this new philosophy, and he has been trying to coach the team. And he had seen some success before, but once you hit the ground running in the Premier League, you need the players to adapt to the situation also because he had whatever he has been trying to do, it's been quite open and covered well in the media. And right from the first game of the Premier League, the teams are targeting his template mainly with two tactics. One is he's trying to play out from the back through the number 6. In game number 1, he tried it with Fred, who got absolutely destroyed by Brighton. Game number 2, he tried to change it around, played Eriksen in the same role. He got targeted, could not touch the ball. He tries to play it out from the back through David De Gea, who we definitely know is a keeper who can't do that. He seemed very confident at the beginning of the season, saying that, hey, for Spain, I play out from the back. It's now because I never got the opportunity, but now you see it out quite clearly. Yes, the coach is trying to do something, but the problem is the players are not probably able to execute it quite well. And at multiple occasions, what I felt is players are probably not smart enough to think on their feet. Like if you have tried to do a technique and it's not working out, or somebody is countering that, then how do you think on your feet to adapt to it? And David De Gea was the typical example for that. Split centre backs and number 6 is targeted. There are two strikers on both the centre backs. Why not play a chip ball or a long ball? He doesn't try to do that. Plays it right into the feet of the player who's being marked, and one by one the goals started coming in. Then for the third goal, it was what was the next big topic, that Lisandro Martinez and his height. You have a 5'9" centre back. Everyone in the Premier League talks about were talking about his height. Multiple memes and videos and trolls going on, and then it proved right. So there I'll still get a benefit in for the set piece because he slipped. But there is another routine that you continuously saw throughout the game, and probably that happened in the previous game, that the big striker is always on Lisandro Martinez, and the keeper of both Brighton and Brentford were playing in the balls directly in. So he never wins the first ball. And then you have Luke Shaw, Harry Maguire, and Fred or Eriksen who are not able to get the second balls. So the game completely got bypassed United. So for a month and a half, you had Erik ten Hag coaching his team to press from the front, and there are two teams who have come in and said, "Oh, you want to press from the front? We'll play the long ball to your shortest centre back," and the game is completely gone. So the players not being able to adapt to it, saying that, hey, if Maguire and Shaw and Fred should see that Martinez is getting targeted, if that's happening, then why don't they make themselves ready for the second ball? That is one. And then David De Gea, if he says that he can't play out from the back, then think of the feet and start playing long balls. So these are the two biggest misses I found from the players.
And also, Ten Hag also mentioned the fact that whatever tactical stuff that they had prepared, the players threw it in the bin. So he's also obviously pissed off about the performance there.
True, that is there, but you can also argue that has he spoken enough to the players to adapt to it? Because in the first match, he played a system or a formation with false stand formation with probably the wrong set of players, and he got completely destroyed in that first half till he tweaked it around. So, not sure about that, but I still won't blame him. Now, other than the match, when you look at what is the bigger problem, you brought in Erik ten Hag for the system. You had reactive managers before Rinole and probably before that in Jose. The problem was that on the other side, you had Man City and Liverpool playing this expansive style of football. You brought in a manager to bring his own players and have his own philosophy. Then back the manager, right? We knew from day number one that he's looking for a ball playing number 6 in Frankie de Jong. What's happening there? You have no clue. You try to play McTominay and Fred. After 2 months of training and discussion, then it's back to square one. What's the whole point? United have been talking about having a striker. You go into a season with Cristiano Ronaldo, who's looking at his way out and is being sold, or he's being linked to every other club in Europe. And Anthony Martial, who has scored 8 goals in 2 seasons, then you are in deep trouble. And on the right wing, you have Jadon Sancho, who has scored 3 more goals, or who has played under more manager than number of goals at United, and that is the situation. So the right wing, you don't have a backup option. Striker, you don't have a backup option. Centre mid, United at least need 2 players, and at right back, you need another player. And of course, if you're trying to play out from the back, David De Gea is not the person for it. So at least a ball-playing goalkeeper who plays second fiddle initially and probably say from January becomes the main goalkeeper. All of these positions were required, and United ended up getting Malacia, who actually played well, who at least for the next few months is going to be a backup. You had Lisandro Martinez, who everyone is questioning, and then you have Christian Eriksen, who's a backup to Bruno Fernandes at best. So, and now you have gone into a stage where on the Friday before the first game, you had Erik ten Hag talking about, we will not sign any players unless we have the right option. Then you get thrashed by Brighton, and the next topic of discussion is, let's get Arnautovic and Rabiot in. So that speaks volume about United's transfer strategy and the current state. Maybe miracles would happen. Maybe in the next 2 weeks you get Messi, Neymar along with Frankie de Jong. But this is going to be a really hectic 4 months till November, and you're already playing catch up. Where would you get the team together to sit and play and coach so that United at least can make the attempt at top 4? Puzzles me.
Yeah, so I mean, I think DSK really hit the nail on the head when he was talking about players not being smart enough, perhaps, right? That's the thing that stood out to me in that game. There was a 8-minute period where there was a dress rehearsal for the goals that were eventually scored. The first one, Maguire just spends an eternity on the ball. Nobody is maybe making a run this way or that way, but Maguire spends way too long, gets pressed, ends up losing the ball, resulting throw in, Ronaldo loses the ball and they end up scoring. Then they have another moment where again Maguire takes too long on the ball, plays the ball right into Eriksen, and Eriksen tries to play a first-time ball to the left, gets pressed, the ball gets one out, and he has to commit a yellow card free kick, and they end up giving a free kick at the edge of the box. The same Eriksen who tried to play that that first time ball was involved in the second goal as well. I don't understand what Lisandro was doing there. There were two Brentford guys just waiting at the edge of the box, waiting to press, and he just played it short anyway. Like there was no pass available to De Gea to make. He should have just gone long. So De Gea also messed up, but he again played it to Eriksen. Eriksen again tried to play the first time ball to the left, got pressed, and this time there was no foul. They ended up scoring 3 times in 8 minutes. You need to learn from this. This is like a preseason game. Like people are just trying out things and seeing how things work. There was no learning on the pitch. So I think DSK at the point he made there was absolutely spot on. One thing I'm not maybe on the same page as DSK is when he said, you get a new manager to do certain thing, back the manager. I'm on board with that. Obviously, you need to back the manager and get the profile of players. But for me, I'm like, I don't understand the strategy that's going on at United at all. Like all the signings, the Frankie de Jong scenario is been a joke. Does he even want to play for United? I think that's the doubt I have right now. And it's been several months of having this discussion about Frankie, and he may not have ever wanted to play for United. Somebody
and even on our group, we've been discussing the fact that do they have a backup if he doesn't want to come? Do they have a backup if he doesn't want to come? And there hasn't seemed to be an answer till now, and the answer apparently is Rabiot, which again confounds belief, I would say.
Yeah. I mean Rabiot. I mean, okay, we'll come to Rabiot, but if Frankie joins Chelsea, then somebody at United needs to be fired. What have they been doing for 2 months? This is clearly then an intent issue on the player side, right? And it needs to be somebody's job to know this shit. Like you can't have a guy who you've been chasing. It looks to be the only main target that you have, and it turns out he never wanted to join in the first place. That's really embarrassing. And then the Rabiot.
I mean, he seems to be saying that he wants to play Champions League. He wants to play Champions League. So potentially that's a reason. But if that is the reason, then there should have been more proactive action in a different direction much earlier. I mean, you don't need to wait till the last day to say, yeah, okay, you know what? He's now playing in London. So we now need to, on the 30th of August, we now need to start looking at different options.
Absolutely. It's 3 months ago that the Champions League the teams were decided, right? It's not something new. I mean, somebody needs to lose their job if he ends up signing for Chelsea. It's been a shit show. I said shit show in the first episode. We had some banter that I'm talking about United and Everton and things like that, but it's actually a shit show. Then the whole Rabiot and Arnautovic thing happens, and then a retraction immediately on the whole Arnautovic thing. Is this a Premier League club? No, I mean, let alone one of the most famous, powerful, biggest historic clubs. Is this something that happens at a Premier League club? These are all small town problems where somebody just makes a decision today, ends up going on Twitter, seeing some backlash, and then saying, "Hey, let's change track and go in a different direction."
Just to come in on that one, I mean, I'm okay with the Arnautovic decision. Obviously, I think you guys will talk more about the Rabiot stuff, but Arnautovic decision, I think I'm okay. It's apparently to do with potentially racist stuff, etc., etc. It's virtually the same thing that Rino Gattuso basically didn't get the Spurs job for. So that bit I'm still okay with.
I'll tell you where I'm not okay, Swag. You don't have to be told by Twitter followers about this stuff. Who's doing the research? You should know all this stuff before you make a PR exercise of, hey, I might be looking into this player, before deciding to go against this player. It doesn't make any sense. And it was a PR exercise. They made it clear that, hey, I've heard the supporters' complaints and now we're backing off. Honestly, I feel that's less professional than even going after them in the first place. Like the fact that they clearly have not done enough research, they don't know what the potential pitfalls of the signing were, and then they got caught out.
Manchester United should not be going for Arnautovic. Leave his past, or leave his whatever he has said about other players. Leave the racist.
Yeah.
If on the first week of August, Manchester United under a new manager is looking for a striker, Marco Arnautovic is not the player, right? And that itself is a bigger problem. Coming back to the other targets, there is one set of story about Frankie de Jong that United have agreed with both Barca and the player. The problem is if the player comes out and publicly says that I want to move, the 14 or 15 million euros that he's due, he'll probably not get that. So he is waiting for that. That is one side of things, and United seem very sure that he's a player, and Erik ten Hag wants or this is the only option. Regarding Rabiot, I personally feel that he is probably not going to play, is not a replacement for Frankie de Jong. So the Frankie de Jong position would be between him and Eriksen. Rabiot would more be the box-to-box midfielder who is an upgrade on McTominay. Because if you saw that 90th minute floated ball from McTominay in the last game where it cleared everyone and went into Rosie, then you probably see the quality of the player. So if for 15 million, somebody who has who is an upgrade, I'm fine with it. But why so late in the cycle? If this guy was available, United probably should have gone for him much before. That is my view. But considering the options are Fred, McTominay, and James Garner, I would rather take Rabiot at this point of time.
Yeah, so see, you know my thoughts. I think Rabiot is. I don't think it is a Frankie de Jong replacement at all. I think they should have been looking at two guys from the beginning. Maybe Frankie is one, and somebody like Rabiot, or maybe someone else. We can debate that, but I don't think he's a direct like for like replacement. So I'm with you there. I am also with you with the whole Frankie de Jong wages stuff. I was completely on board with that stuff, but the problem that I have now is if he signs for Chelsea. If he signs for Chelsea, that means the last 2 months have been just bullshit. Like there is clearly he didn't want to sign, and Chelsea have now come up with something that is, and now he wants to sign for Chelsea. If he signs for Chelsea, somebody needs to get fired. For me, it's that simple. You can't mess up so badly. But anyway, going to the larger point, where I disagreed with some parts about the backing the manager part is where is the planning? Where's the structure? Where's the technical director or director of football who sets the strategy that the manager kind of has to operate within? I don't see that part. And this is coming from a place of deep hurt because we've been through the Roy Hodgson era, we've been through the Brendan Rodgers era where we ended up signing Poulsen, Konchesky, Joe Allen, Fabio Borini. These are all small time signings. These are all coaches who were not big enough to get the job that they got, and they ended up going with what they're comfortable with. That's not the expectation when you sign somebody like that. You expect them to step up and take a level up to what they were doing in the past, and that's not. If you just go with like what you're comfortable with, then I don't see how you're going to take up a larger challenge like a club like United or Liverpool or something of that sort.
The worry among all the United fans also, first of all, there is a lot of similarity to the 2013 summer. What's happening now? That both the manager and the executive has changed. So you have Murto who has joined in, and he is supposedly pulling the strings, but he's also new to the job, and he has lost his negotiator, he has lost other folks. So currently United are in a situation where they do not have the contacts across Europe to pull the strings. They have fired the two heads of their scouting department. So the current situation is they have no clue, and they have gone to the manager, what do you want? And he has given a bunch of names that he's aware of from the Dutch league. And if those are the only options in front of United, God bless us. And Europa quarterfinal is probably the best thing that we can hope for at this point of time. Sorry about that.
For me, no worries. So for me, I think you just said it right towards the end of what you were just talking about. For me, it's just scouting failure. I think, the one part of it is, you're trying to get Frankie de Jong to come. You may have heard that he wants to play Champions League football. United are not in the Champions League. Maybe a little money will sway his mind. Those thoughts could have entered whoever it is, I think, whoever it is who's doing the negotiations, right? The other part is, if you are scrambling in the middle of August to get a couple of players over the line that the manager seems to have recently identified, then where was that initial scouted shortlist to begin with? Right? Where was, at the beginning of the summer, where was that list of 5 players that said, for this position, these are our 5 options, right? Why is a name like Rabiot coming up in August? I know there was reports that they've been talking to Rabiot for longer than just the last few weeks, but I think that's the thing. I think Chelsea have something similar in the sense that they are also trying for player A than player B. The only difference is that they're moving on faster. Right? Rafinha went, they immediately went for somewhere else. Kunde went, they went and they're trying, at least they're trying to get Fofana. So I think United needed to move on from the De Jong transfer, and the fact that they haven't leads me to believe that there is no short list of targets, right? Which then leads to the whole relying on whoever the manager seems to be comfortable with. I think that's more of a thing. That's a structure that will have to be set in place over time. It's not a one window thing. So in that sense, I do agree with DSK that, if I want an upgrade on Fred and McTominay and I know that I can get a Rabiot at a decent price, it's not the worst thing in the world to go for him at that price. He's not a long-term solution.
There are a few other things that I've been hearing. The first one is the manager actually wanted to give the players a fair chance, and then after seeing the state of things, that he has been appalled or shocked, and that's why this late move for some of the signings. That is one. The second point is on why these signings and not somebody else. I'm hearing that United's financials are probably not that great, so they can no longer do a Ronaldo or a Sanchez in the next few summers. And I think Gary Neville also mentioned this point. I'm not sure in the interview or on Twitter. So now they have to look at options where, like, if it's a short term, they can't throw money at it. So they have to look at some cheap alternatives. And the third one is the latest that we're hearing on Ronaldo. That people inside Old Trafford, at least some of the coaches and players, are absolutely fed up with him. But of course, the owners do not want to let go of him because of all the social media traction that you get. Now, this is
the marketability, basically.
Correct. And this is the next big problem, because it is quite clear that he's not the fit for Ten Hag system. Ten Hag made the political statement saying that he's a wonderful player, but Ronaldo clearly wanted to leave. He has been convinced to stay. Now he comes in, and after two games, United are now wondering whether it's worth keeping him. So now the whole point of moving him on, and who are you going to bring as a possible alternative to Martial, because Martial is a glass man in the true sense. That's another really, really horrible thing that United have to deal with in the next 16 days.
So, see, I get what you're saying. This guy is better than what we have. He's an upgrade. I'm totally with all of that. Let me qualify this also by saying that this is not a critique on Ten Hag. It's maybe all these players that we're talking about are like super players, and maybe they would have signed them anyway, and no brainers, right? Like, but Malacia from the Dutch league, Lisandro from his own Ajax team, Eriksen, of course, a Premier League player in the past, but coincidentally from the Eredivisie as well. De Jong, this whole pursuit, just thinks of a manager saying, I want this player, even if the player doesn't maybe want to come. Classic Romeo-Juliet scenario, except in this case that Juliet probably never loved Romeo in the first place and is just filing for a restraining order at the end of all of this. It's a tops club, a serious club should have guardrails to protect for these things. But I was willing to give all of this a pass until I heard the Arnautovic rumor. And he's a clear buddy of Ten Hag and McLaren. It's well documented. Arnautovic's greatest career accomplishment is basically he probably could do it in a cold, windy night at Stoke. That's all he's done in his entire career. And he's being linked to joining United.
That's more than Messi has ever done, right?
Probably yeah, that's the reason, right? So you on a proper good green carpet, you have Martial to glide through the pitch and score. If you want to go and get stuck into someone, who do we have? And that's Arnautovic. But yeah, that's just a joke. We can close the section with this thought, and this is on Woodward selling the United job to Klopp by calling it the adult version of Disneyland. I think this is probably even 2 steps more. This is like the greatest circus ever, and it's a unending joke for in front of football, and hopefully for all of you not United fans, it's a lot of entertainment watching this.
See, you say that, and I should be entertained. I should be happy, right? As a Liverpool fan, this is real. This is stuff I should be happy with. And long may it continue, don't get me wrong. But the stench of this ineptitude just really offends me, man. It's hard to watch. Like, it's a little bit like the whole Barca situation, where I don't give a shit about Barca. I've never really liked them, and all the stuff that's happening with them, I should be able to enjoy, but it's cringy. I'm not able to stomach the scale of what is happening. This ownership team, this leadership team, they're really making a laughing stock of this club. And if they're allowed to do it for another 3-4 years, I don't think even the likes of Pep and Klopp will be able to get these guys back to their perch.
Right. So before we move on, I mean, just a shout out to Brentford. I mean, they came to the match with a plan. They executed the plan and they reaped the rewards. I mean, it wasn't all just United saying, yeah, I mean, take 3 points and go. But yeah, credit to Brentford where it's due. Moving on, City versus Bournemouth. We were expecting a high-scoring game from City, and that's what happened. Apart from the fact that Haaland decided to deceive his fantasy owners, and yeah, didn't give them too much to talk about. But again, expected dominant performance against a low-level team. I mean, I say low-level in quotes, but and Pep must have definitely said, "Oh, they were very tough to play against, and we had to play out of our skin like he usually does against the second half teams." Radha, I think you have some thoughts about Haaland.
Yeah. So I think the part that is scary about all of this is, first of all, he should have had a goal early on. Foden was through on goal. There were two easy open goal passes that he should have made. He didn't make it. And what was really interesting was after the game, Pep said that he should have definitely passed. Maybe in the past we had a false nine and you didn't know that somebody was going to be there. But now with Erling, all our players should always know that somebody is there. That line was a bit scary to me because City already score like 500 tap-ins every year. And now if they're going to, this was them thinking that a false nine might not be in position, and now Haaland is there and they're going to start playing those balls more. That is a bit scary. It sucks for everybody else in the league. But his one-on-one dueling is a cheat code. And see, this is all in a game where he didn't really do much. He had 8 touches. He had 2 passes in this game. That's it. 8 touches, 2 passes. One of them was an assist. But his one-on-one dueling is it's cheating. Like, he held 2 guys off, fell on the floor, and then played the assist to Gundogan. In the next, like a few minutes later, he bumped into the center back. That guy went flying, and then he collected it in front of goal, and he better touch, and it should have been a goal for him. It's a little scary considering that he's still getting his grip around the team, the system, and what is expected out of him. But the way things are looking, I think he's going to break this league.
Yeah, and as I was mentioning something on our group also yesterday. I know City don't have the biggest squad in terms of sheer numbers, but the fact that they can do 5 substitutions, I think, is going to be very, very crucial for them. If you recall the game, Foden scored, City are already 3-0 up, Foden scored and was taken off at halftime. You get to take off your Haaland with some 20-odd minutes to go. You get to take off Kyle Walker with 10 minutes to go. And you get to take off Gundogan with around, I think, half an hour or so to go. Right? It's those minutes over the course of a season really add up. Right? And we're talking about a team that is usually 2 or 3-0 up by halftime. Right? So if all of those minutes can be brought back in terms of additional stamina towards the end of the season, not that City need any additional stamina, that just sort of guarantees that you get to play your Kevin De Bruyne for 30, 34, 35 games. And if you can keep Haaland and De Bruyne and Foden going for that number of games a season, City are bound to get 95, 96 points yet again. Right? So I think the 5 subs is going to be very, very beneficial to City this time.
Yeah. Moving on from Manchester, coming back to good old London that we keep referencing. Arsenal won again. For me, it seemed a bit like last week's performance again. They seemed to be in control some of the time. Then they also displayed a bit of a soft belly at some point, in some phases as well. I mean, last week I think Palace didn't have that cutting edge to make merry when they actually had the chances. Leicester had slightly better strikers and managed to get the ball in the back of the net. But Arsenal, with their superior attacking capability, managed to win through the day. But yeah, I mean, the way we've been looking at Arsenal from the start, I think we still have some question marks over where they sit in the pile. Fresh convert to Christianity, Radhaji. I mean, Jesus has changed your life.
Damn right. And what a start to the season they've had. I mean, I think they're quickly becoming the must-watch team right now. And like you said, you hit the nail on the head exactly. They're so good to watch and so smooth in the attacking sense, but they also have just the right amount of softness in the underbelly that makes it like a contest each time. So I think as a neutral, it's going to be really exciting to watch Arsenal games because they actually remind me of the 2016-17 Liverpool team, which probably had less than 10 clean sheets, but was scoring some scintillating goals. We ended up finishing fourth. Like we'll smash Arsenal at the Emirates and then we'll lose to Burnley next week. So it was a typical exciting for a neutral kind of season, probably not for the fans. But my man, my number 9, what can I say, man? He had a great game. He can press, he can work hard, he can head it, he can dribble past 5 guys, he can hold back, curl it into the top corner. He can hold off a big centre back, turn him. He can play 1-2s and get into the box with space. There's nothing he can't do. He had 15 touches in the box in the game. He should have had 5 or 6 goals, and that's no exaggeration. Like you said, Gab Jesus, he can walk on water, turn water to wine. It's great to watch.
I mean, so much praise, and yet you forgot to take him in your draft team. Come on. Put your mouth where your money is, or the other way around, whatever the saying is. Come on, you should have taken Gab Jesus. Anyway, I mean, Leicester again, softer and still not sure where they stand in the grand scheme of things. Still no signings. Schmeichel is gone. No money seems to be coming in. Still waiting on seeing if Madison and Tielemans go anywhere, and then reinvesting that, I suppose. But yeah, uncertain times ahead for Mr. Rogers.
So just a quick shout out to RK who couldn't be here today. I mean, he called that set piece goal. He called it on the podcast last week. Vardy and Jesus duly delivered. They conceded 20 goals from set pieces last season and they're already off the mark. Palace was actually on their heels with 16 goals last season from set pieces. So he was hoping my prediction last week of Palace conceding to Liverpool of a set piece comes true as well.
Yeah. Right. Moving on to the south coast of England. I mean, this seems to be turning into a geography lesson, but Brighton nil, Newcastle nil. Brighton had quite a lot of chances, but they couldn't make them pay, thanks to a certain Mr. Nick Pope, who was trending in the last 3 days on Twitter. I think it started with some fan group from Newcastle putting up some quote and then you had this movement basically taking over Twitter, where you had some burger joints also tweeting about Nick Pope, and it finally ended up with, after the game, Brighton tweeting Nick Pope frustratingly because he had kept them at bay. But nothing much came out of that game apart from the fact that Brighton still look good for a better showing than last season. Newcastle continuing to build quietly. They gave a full debut to Sven Botman, who's someone I'm very interested in seeing. Moving on, we also had Wolves, Fulham, and Mitrovic missing penalties.
Yeah. It was actually a pretty dull game.
Yeah.
There were a few chances, but and a very, very quiet game from Mitrovic. And then it was almost so quiet that when he finally got the penalty, he fluffed it. So I think, it's one of those dull nil-nils. Probably, the highlight package on social media will probably be not more than a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
One of those kind of games.
Cool. So in that case, we'll move on as well. This ends part 1. When we come back, we'll start with Stamford Bridge. Welcome back. In part 2, we're starting off with the Battle of the Bridge, part 2, which was Chelsea versus Spurs yesterday. And as a Chelsea fan, I have to say, I feel a bit robbed by the result of the game. I think Chelsea dominated the game. We were definitely the better side. And despite all of that, some dodgy refereeing. Anthony Taylor has been getting petitions in his name about him not ever being allowed to be in charge of a Chelsea game ever and stuff like that. I don't want to go too deep onto refereeing decisions, but yeah, I mean, nowadays referees have the support of VAR as well, and I fail to understand how what happened with Cucurella was allowed to stand, and VAR took a look at it and didn't do anything. Maybe there's some technicality which I'm missing, but it didn't make sense to me for there to be no punishment for Romero for that. In terms of the game, I think Chelsea did pretty well. We controlled the game. The movement was pretty fluid. We were able to change our shape to counter Spurs whenever it was like Mount and Sterling were moving around, switching onto the players so that uh, whenever Spurs had the ball, they did not have many free options to go to build something. So in those terms, I think Tuchel did well. I think the internet is very happy with the fact that there is finally a fiery rivalry in the Premier League after the nice guys of Klopp and Pep basically saying we are Karan and Arjun, but now we finally have two folks who are ready to fight about it. Shades of Mourinho there with Tuchel's celebration in the second goal. Conte saying today on Instagram, good thing I didn't see you running in front of me, would have been a perfect opportunity to trip you up. That is what you deserve. So I'm already excited about the return leg and interested to see what happens going forward. Ab, you have any further things to add on this game?
Yeah, the game I think was the first proper, I think the first proper game of the season where it felt like the Premier League is back, right? Yeah, like you said, Chelsea dropped 2 points. I think no matter what happened, no matter what the referee may have done or not done, you should not concede from a corner in the 95th minute, right? It denotes or it showcases the fragility which should not be there in the top sides. So I was telling on our group also yesterday where, until that fragility goes away, Chelsea will not be able to compete with the two teams that finished above them last season. I also don't want to spend too much time on the referee. This is not the first time Anthony Taylor has been involved in some dodgy refereeing in a Chelsea match. This petition that you talked about, I think the first one of those petitions came more than a year ago, if I recall, right, where he shouldn't referee and all. I believe it has some 30 or 40,000 odd signatures. I think it was a good game. Definitely 2 points dropped for Chelsea. I think Spurs played well in the sense that they stayed in the game. I think that's pretty much all they could do. Chelsea dominated. But I think you have to stay in the game, and I think that's what Conte also would have probably instructed his team to do. So I think it's a good point for Spurs, definitely a better point than the one Chelsea got. And I'm excited to see this rivalry. Finally, we have a good rivalry. And we'll see how it goes. Although, if you ask me personally, should we even be treating Spurs as our equals?
I mean, it's a fair change in attitude that we've had, all of us, from the season preview when we thought that Spurs might even be in with us outside shout of getting into second. But just touching upon the refereeing bit once again, I think I remember hearing last year, particularly in the league, there used to be a Totally Football League show which used to talk about the Championship and League One and League Two, and they also talked about refereeing decisions and stuff like that. And they said that basically there's a dearth of elite quality referees. So which is why even if there is, they deem that there is some punishment to be meted out to Anthony Taylor, the max that will happen is that he basically stops refereeing Chelsea games, because the only way that you can have more referees is that they come up from the Championship or League One. Basically, the referees also get promoted, and apparently there the levels are even worse. So we need to be mindful that it's probably just a very small pool. And the best probably that Tuchel also mentioned is that it's probably just best that he doesn't referee Chelsea games going forward. But yeah, limited pool. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, I think Tuchel will almost certainly get a touchline ban for not just the red card, but also his comments post the game. I believe he said something to the effect of, I might not be there next week on the touchline, but the referee still gets to blow his whistle or something like that. So if not the red card, those comments will certainly see him at least get a hefty fine, if not a touchline ban. So, add to that, N'Golo Kante getting injured yesterday, and it looks like a bad hamstring pull again, or a hamstring tear. I hope that's not the case. I think Chelsea are in for a bit of a tough time. On the bright side, we will get to see more of Conor Gallagher in midfield.
Yeah.
Looking forward to that.
Yeah. I was also impressed by Koulibaly and Cucurella finally playing a full game, and he did well. I mean, all three of the new signings did well. They played their part. They actually were involved in both of the goals. So hopefully, good times ahead. Let's see what comes up. I'm a bit surprised with the Anthony Gordon links. Unable to understand what's going on there, but yeah.
I could go
It's
on
pretty
a
clear,
whole
right?
rant about that.
It's pretty clear, man. All you need is goals. You let go of Lukaku, so you should sign. You should sign a what is he? Number 10, number 7, number 8.5. Yeah, it makes sense. Makes total sense.
Yeah, let's sign the false number 9 from Everton, basically.
Yes, that should do the trick.
I think I went on the. I think last week I was discussing how even if Everton do create chances, I don't see who's going to score with the likes of Gordon up front, Demarai Gray, and all that. And I think Chelsea must be listening to the pod. Great addition to their squad if it happens. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, if you look at the problems that Everton are suffering, it is almost exactly similar up front, at least in the final third, to the Chelsea problem. In the sense, obviously Chelsea are a much more well-oiled unit. They create more chances. They have more quality players. But if you leave that aside for a minute, Chelsea always land up in the spot where they create a chance, but there's no one to bully a defender, get that finish in, that centre forward, right? It's kind of similar for Everton. No matter what they do and they create the chance, Gray does a good run, or Gordon himself, they just cannot finish it off, and they've lost Richarlison also, right? So to sign a guy who's struggling to get goals, he's doing well in his role, Gordon, right? He runs up and down the field all game, but to get him and hope that will solve the problem, I don't know. I know that Chelsea may not be looking at him as a solution to this problem. They may just see value in having a player like that for the long term. But that one completely baffles me.
Just on the game, right? I think so. Swag, you mentioned that some of us were really bullish on Spurs, and I do still have them top 4 comfortably, maybe 3. I still have Arsenal ahead of Spurs, but anyway, I don't think this game is going to be any different. They are definitely going to have a really strong season. They were not at all as good as I expected them to be. They were quite poor, I thought. Not the high energy, winning the ball back, dominating, not giving the opponent time to breathe. I didn't see any of that. That said, to come out with a 2-2 draw, I think it's a great result. And those are the kind of results that probably go against you when you're not a serious team. So it's good for them that it went that way. No way that the goal should have stood. There is no chance that either of the goals should have stood. Both were clear fouls. Going back to the one we saw with Henderson last week, where maybe the argument that is being made on these is that it was way behind. It was 45 seconds before the goal was actually scored. Then what the hell is the point of VAR, right? So you're excusing mistakes as long as they happen a decent amount of time before something important happens. So that really sucks. But anyway, it was a good game. Absolutely brilliant game to watch for the neutrals because of all the drama. Kane scoring a 95th minute. The managers, oh my God. I don't think I've seen anything like that since the days of Arsene Wenger and who was that guy from West Ham? Pardew, I think. Yeah, Pardew and Wenger, those fights. This was just superb. I mean, the shake hand nonsense at the end, it's proper shithousery. And as a neutral, it was just great to watch. Going back to the pre-game, or probably, I don't know whether it was last week, the comments that Jamie Redknapp and Gary Neville of "look at me when I'm talking to you" kind of comments that happened on Sky. It was almost a
same
of that on the pitch. It was just superb. I mean, I have no problem with this. I know a lot of people going on Twitter and saying that this is not how a manager should behave and things like that. I much prefer the managers are who they like. They're being natural rather than being the shifty Brendan Rodgers-y kind of, just reading out of a book of what to say when kind of situation. I loved it. And I can't wait for the next Spurs-Chelsea game. That'll be fun.
Just a final word on this. Who's going to be missed more on the touchline next week for their team? Tuchel or Conte?
So I think Conte. In general, I think Conte is much more of a on the sideline transfer the energy to the players kind of manager. Not to say that Tuchel is not good at it, but just that Conte, I think, raises the bar on that intensity. So I think Conte will definitely be missed more.
Yep, agree. Conte.
Cool. All right. So moving on, we also had Aston Villa 2, Everton 1. Radha, Gerrard finally got a win. But just reading today, Diogo Carlos has now ruptured his Achilles and he's likely to be out for 6 to 9 months. Comes handily right after he's stripped Mings of the captaincy and told him he's probably not good enough for the first 11. And now he's going to try and have to nurse him back into the team and massage his ego a bit. How's that going to go, you think?
See, let me just start by saying I think everybody who's on our WhatsApp group knows my thoughts on Tyrone Mings. I think he is by far the most overrated player in the league. That said, he's going to be critical for Villa going forward. Weird how that works out. Yeah, but I think it was Gerrard, to be fair to him, he wanted to make the decision on who the captain was, and he inherited Mings as the captain. So I would liken this somewhat to when Southgate took over the English team and Henderson was the captain, but he wanted to make a decision and choose the captain, and he ended up going with Kane. I don't think it's anything to do with the caliber of the player or any personality. It's just the coach is looking for something else out of the leader. So that part aside, I do think Mings is pretty poor. Having to depend on him last season also was probably something that they would have liked to have done without. It's a big miss. That said, the game was really, really poor in terms of quality. It was so bad. I mean, obviously as a Liverpool fan, I back Gerrard to the hilt, and I'd like to think that in the battle of the midfielders, Gerrard came out on top, just like in my head he always did. But the truth is, they played like two relegation teams. Honestly, like Villa, I had them doing decently this season, but I didn't see anything to prove otherwise. The game was really bad. The ending was really good for the viewers because it was so many mistakes, end-to-end stuff. Like it looked like every chance Everton were going to score, and Villa had some good chances as well. But the quality was really poor, and I'm worried for Villa if this is how it's going to continue. Everton, you guys know my thoughts already. I've talked about it in depth.
Your love for Everton is known worldwide now.
Honestly, I mean, I know that they still have the likes. I don't know whether he's left or he's just injured, but Andre Gomez is, I think, out with an injury. These are higher quality players that should come back in and maybe improve them. But Everton, I don't see how they're going to score goals this season. I don't think Lampard is also the right manager for a struggling team. So I'm worried for Everton. But I'm now getting a bit worried about Villa as well. I mean, they don't have excuses in terms of personnel. They don't have excuses in terms of being settled. I think they've recruited well. They have a lot of money that's been spent. Gerrard has been there for a while now. If they don't finish in the top 10, I'm worried for Gerrard's future ambitions as a top level manager.
Yeah, and he's been booed a bit as well from the fans from game week 1 as well. I mean, I'm not concerned in terms of, like you said, I don't think they'll get sucked into the relegation fight. But yeah, I think expectations were higher, particularly with the amount of money that's been put into Villa over the summer. The Carlos injury is obviously unfortunate, but yeah, I think they need to show some more improvement in terms of how they play. Moving on, Southampton 2 Leeds 2, both teams who've been tipped for relegation by this pod, and somehow they've been fighting fit. You had Rodrigo come up against you in the draft this week, and he's basically single-handedly consigned you to a defeat, despite the fact that you had how many points from from your team?
Yep, Rodrigo was my arch nemesis this week. I think he scored 1 goal in the first game, and now he scored another 2.
Yeah,
he's filling that Rafinha void pretty nicely for Leeds. But I think Leeds will be a little disappointed. They came up against a Southampton team, which is not very good, as we have also spoken about last week. And I think they let a 2-goal lead slip, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Memory serves. So that does not bode well at all for Jesse Marsh, because it's these kind of games that Leeds will need to win if they want to stay up and stay up comfortably. You need to be winning these games. That said, yeah, like you said, Rodrigo, my arch nemesis, he's ensured that I've lost game week, despite scoring a pretty good number of points from my other picks, Haaland and Gundogan and so on. Yeah, we'll see how Leeds and Southampton go from here.
I'm surprised though, because all of us have had different views about the teams that are going to go down. Southampton, Leeds, Fulham, Forest, Brentford, etc., etc. But no one seems to be giving up without a fight. It doesn't seem like there's a Norwich season anywhere in them. There seem to be quite a lot of mediocre teams, but they seem to be mediocre together. It doesn't seem like there's a standout who's just going to give up and say, yeah, okay, you know what, we're just going to go to the championship. That's fine. We'll just take the parachute money and that's it.
Yeah, so I'm not seeing anything from Everton to suggest otherwise. I think they're still in danger. I had Nottingham Forest as my team to watch this season. I'm a bit worried about them as well. So I know we'll talk about them more this season. But a quick shout out now that we talked about the draft. There was a lot of chat last week, all through the week, about and his draft and his Mitro-watch and his this and his that. There was a clip of me from episode 1 and all that I've heard in the last 1 week. It was great to see Mitro-watch miss a penalty up. That was pretty cool.
Salah misses penalties too now and then. It happens to the greatest players, man. So it's fine as long as Fulham keep winning those penalties. I'll be happy with my pick. I think Mitro-watch will score a good heap of goals. That's it. He did also contribute to my draft loss this week. A penalty, I think, is a negative 2 points or something.
Yeah.
So that didn't help me either, but I still have faith.
Yeah. And rather, you talked about Forest. This Forest seems to be full of not trees, but new signings. We're already down like number 15 or number 16, and there seem to be more people coming in. Now they're linked. Latest signing was Remo Freuler from Atalanta. People who are aspiring to be top 4 in Serie A are happy to go to just promoted Nottingham Forest in the Premier League. Hosam Awar is getting linked to them, and it seems to be a pretty strong link. Not only does that tell you quite a lot about the strength of the Premier League in terms of financial disparity with the other leagues and the strength of the league, but yeah, it's also quite a statement of intent by the Nottingham Forest management. I know we've been hearing links with Fulham of like 2 years ago or 4 years ago when they signed 10-15 players as well. A bit of what Forest have done this season is born out of necessity because of, as we've mentioned earlier, because of the high number of loan signings they had in the championship. But it's virtually a new club now, and they've got so many players fighting for the same spot. They've got Avonai, your favorite. They've got Brennan Johnson. Now they're also in talks to sign Neil Maupay. Who's going to play where? What's happening?
So, Avonai got off the mark. Great to see. One of the best finishes you'll ever see. He had no idea where the ball was, went off his knee, and he ended up scoring. Great start to his, restart to his Premier League career. But yeah, the reason why I picked Forest as my team to watch this season back in episode 1 is because of this chaos, right? Like Joker says, the agent of chaos. I'm just looking forward to see whether it goes one way or the other. It can go both directions in similar velocity. So, Awar or Awar or however you pronounce his name, he was being linked with Arsenal. Was it last year?
Yeah.
And that's how the hell are Forest signing somebody like that? And then you talk about like the crazy signing of Jesse Lingard, paying him 200k a week on a 1-year contract. There's a lot of stuff there that it just needs a match. I think the fuel is set. Just needs a match. One way or the other, things are going to light up at Nottingham Forest this season.
Yeah.
There's
Sorry, just go ahead, Ab.
No, I was just saying that there are 2 types of teams that come up right from the championship. There's one which comes up and then they change their entire team, aka a la Forest this year and Fulham pretty much every other year. And then there are those teams which come up and then hardly make any new signings. And both these categories of teams tend to go straight back down to the championship. So I think it's that finding that middle ground which teams fail to do, the right signings in the right places to stay in the Premier League. I know that some of them have worked it out, and of course, notably, teams which made very few signings, like Brentford also last year managed to stay up, and they're still looking pretty good this year also. But I think history does not bode well for teams that change their entire squad just after coming into the league.
Just a quick one before we move on to the next team. West Ham should have scored 2 or 3 goals. So I am a bit worried for Forest. They were in real trouble that entire game.
You mean West Ham?
Outstanding. Sorry?
You mean West Ham?
I mean, like, no, I'm saying Forest was, they had a lot of chances against them. And if not for their keeper, I think they were in real trouble that entire game. And some outstanding saves, a penalty save, worst penalty I've seen in a long time. But some great saves, a double save here and there, and a penalty save. If only United had a keeper like that, man, that they can count on, they would do really well. Dean Henderson doing a great job.
Rubbing salt into the wounds.
Dean Henderson. Yeah. I remember a Dean Henderson who used to play for United. I wonder if it's the same guy.
This is the same guy who apparently cut shop and left before he could even meet Ten Hag because he didn't want any conversation about changing his mind. He was, I mean, it's a nice, anyway, we've spoken about United enough. I'm sure the fires are burning there.
So moving on, in part 3, we'll discuss the next round of games. Right, and finally, part 3, we look forward to the games coming up. We also have Liverpool Crystal Palace today evening, but we've already discussed that last week. No change in our philosophy as of now. So coming to the next round of games, interestingly enough, with all that's going on at Manchester United, now they have to welcome Liverpool to Old Trafford. DSK, how optimistic are you on a scale of 0 to 1?
Can I go negative? So yeah, on Sunday, United players were supposed to have an off day because they had a Saturday late match. But after the drubbing, Ten Hag apparently got his players in and made them run 13.8 kilometers. That is the total distance that Brentford as a team ran more. So if he's able to do that throughout the week and get his team conditioned, I expect the score to be 2-0, and a 2-0 loss is something that I will take at this point of time. If it doesn't, I have a lot of respect for Klopp, and think Klopp has a lot of respect for Man United. So at 4-0, he'll stop like both the times last season. So yeah, worst case is 4-0, best case is 2-0.
You no hope for scoring. Is Martial expected to be back for this one, or still no chance?
I've read that he has started training.
Okay.
But the team is absolutely zero on confidence. So even with Martial coming back, probably I don't see anything. Any surprises against a well-oiled Liverpool team?
And would Martinez start? I mean, considering they also have Nunes, that would be a bloodbath if Nunes ended up standing next to Lisandro. Do you think that the fact that he took him off?
Right. It'll be interesting to see because Varane had come on in the second half and did quite well. Also, at the same time, if you look at the fourth goal that United conceded, Maguire was ball watching for a good couple of seconds. He was completely square on, had no clue about the threat behind him. So, is Varane and Martinez option? Because Varane is more mobile, and even if Martinez does not get the headers, Varane is mobile enough to sweep in. So, we'll have to see how that works out. But maybe United will play 3 at the back or Martinez as the number 6 because there isn't anyone who can kick the ball. But yeah, let's see how it goes.
Yeah, I think if I was a United fan, I think the bar I would keep for this game will be low. I just want to see a better starting lineup than the one that started against Brentford. Right, I think the team that played the second half was fairly okay. And I would want to see the elimination of all those errors that led to goals. I think I would just go with this low bar, and anything that happens over and above this, I think, is a bonus in that game.
Yeah. Any other games that caught your eye for this upcoming round? I mean, Twitter is abuzz with Oil Clasico coming up, with Newcastle facing Manchester City, the team who they're hoping to dethrone gradually and easily in all due course of time. So would be their would be City's biggest challenge so far, I am guessing. I mean, more than West Ham and definitely more than Bournemouth, obviously.
Yeah, most definitely. And I think Liverpool fans will be keeping an eye on this one. Potentially, the first point that City could drop could happen here. Newcastle are really flying wind in their sails. And I believe the game is at St. James's Park. So there should be a good crowd, setting a great atmosphere there. But I think quietly within Newcastle, they won't be expecting too much within this game. I think they know that despite the money invested, there's still a few years from catching the team to the top six.
Right. Yeah. Another game that caught my eye was Everton Forest. Could be a 6-pointer for the drop, rather for avoiding the drop. I don't know which Forest plays that game. Is it the first 11? Is it the original 11? Is it the new 11? Is it the third 11? I don't know. By the time next round matches comes around, they might have signed 10 more. So don't know, but that sounds an interesting game on paper. DSK.
I hope Jesse Lingard plays a game. Other than Jesus, there is nobody in my fantasy draft team who is scoring any points other than Lingard. I went a bit heavy on United and Spurs and haven't done well. So definitely a match to look forward. And if Everton don't get anything from this game, then it'll be a bit of a worry for the Toffees. Another game I am looking forward is West Ham Brighton. West Ham had a really brilliant season last time out, but they are yet to score points, and they are up against a very, very well-oiled Brighton team. So if they don't score any points here, there will be pressure straight away on Moyes after the amount of investment they have done with 2 new attacking players, and they're really short on the defensive side with injuries to the back line. So that game will be an interesting watch.
Yeah, and despite the fact that they've made so many signings towards the attacking part of the team, I don't think they've scored a goal yet, let alone a point. So that's also there to consider. Fulham Brentford also seems like something which we initially tagged as in our preseason expectations as a potential relegation face-off. But I mean, Brentford would be flying high after what they did this round against United, and let's see how that goes. But Fulham need to be very scared, and so does with Mitro-watch.
Yeah, I think that will be an interesting one to keep an eye on, as will Leeds Chelsea, I think. So that's usually a pretty feisty game. Leeds have started pretty well, a win and a draw. I think this could be a pretty interesting game. I think Chelsea will need the 3 points if they do want to keep up with the teams around them.
Yeah, and this is a weird rivalry, right? It's not a geographic rivalry. It doesn't define us, but somehow Leeds versus Chelsea is historically a great rivalry. Leeds Chelsea FA Cup final from the 70s or the 60s is the single most watched football match on BBC of all time. I mean, I think it's still in the top 10 or something. So that's a very interesting, quaint rivalry which doesn't have any bearings in usual rivalry measures. But apart from that, Leicester Southampton, 2 teams that are underwhelming so far. Let's see how that one pans out. I mean, I would say probably Leicester edge it just a bit. Bournemouth Arsenal, I think we're foreseeing an Arsenal win, easy Arsenal win.
I think it might be a little harder, but I do expect Arsenal to win. I think Bournemouth at home, I think that'll be not the easiest proposition. Probably Arsenal's toughest game up until now, I would say.
Okay. I mean, even more than Leicester. That's quite some backing for Mr. Parker and his multicolored jackets. Crystal Palace, Aston Villa. I mean, I'm leaning slightly towards Crystal Palace here. We talked in part 2 about how Aston Villa are have not been up to the level that we expected them to after all the signings that they've made. Palace were pretty organized. We haven't seen them apart from the game against Arsenal. We'll see them by the time this pod is out, because as we said before, Liverpool game is tonight. But they have better organization. Vieira has them playing in a more palatable manner. So I mean, I would say that Palace might edge it with Villa. But DSK, any thoughts on Spurs Wolves apart from Perisic assist points? Hopefully.
I expect it to be a really boring 1-0. Kane also on Tunic. But overall, not going to be the most entertaining game. Wolves have not been playing that well, and they are struggling with injuries. But the more surprising part is how Spurs have been playing. A lot of us had them for the third position, but they don't seem to be playing a lot of fluid attacking, easy on the eye football yet. With the number of attacking and wing back options, but the quality is still there, so I expect them to nick the game at the end.
Sure. So that brings us to the end of this episode. We'll see you again next week after the upcoming round. Till then, have a good week, enjoy, and have a good night. Thanks.